Engagers, this is Professor Game, where we interview successful practitioners of games, gamification, and game thinking who bring us the best of their experiences to get ideas, insights, and inspiration to help us in the process of using games and gamification in our daily lives, for example, to learn what we are teaching. And I am Rob Alvarez. I work at Ironhack, teach at IE Business School University, and so much more, and host this podcast. If you have an extra second, please go ahead and subscribe for free to our email list at professorgame.com/subscribe. Hey, Engagers, welcome back to another episode of the Professor Game podcast because we have Angela with us today. But Angela, before we take off, are you prepared to engage?
Of course. I was born engaged.
Let's do this because we have Angela Feigl with us today. And she became a learning design enthusiast from an early age, creating learning games with pen and paper and scissors for her little brother and deciding then already that this is what she wants to do for the rest of her life. You knew very, very soon. As a business administration and international economics graduate, she has dedicated all her work life to building, administrating, and facilitating meaningful learning experience journeys for people and organizations around the world. It's her mission to move learning from being a task to being fun. So, Angela, are we missing anything from that intro?
No, all good. You got it perfectly.
Amazing. So, Angela, we would like to know what does your life look like? We want to know what it feels to be Angela nowadays, or I don't know, what's your day to day or week to week? We just want to have some insights into what that feels like.
Well, as somebody that wants to make people's life more fun through learning, it's not always easy, to be honest, because sometimes, or probably most of the time through our education, we kind of feel like learning is a task and we have to learn something, we have to do something. And when you tell people, listen, you can learn by having fun, they start looking at you and they're like, that's not serious and that's not something that can work, because if it's not painful, it will never work. And so sometimes
You will
I
never
face it.
remember it without the pain.
No, you need the pain for things to work, and that's maybe what sometimes frustrates me here and there. But otherwise, you have to keep preaching that, because it's really firmly believe it doesn't have to hurt to work. So
It shouldn't. Maybe
no.
there's some lessons as well from games of the grind and all these things, but it doesn't always have to be that way. There is some value in those things, but it doesn't always and exclusively have to be that way. There can be a lot of
No,
fun in learning, and
there should be.
we have kind of forgotten as a humankind in many ways that learning is actually fun.
Yeah,
We
and
enjoy learning things.
I honestly think, I don't know why we keep associating fun in learning only with childhood, and somehow decide that when we move towards and through adulthood, and whatever that means until the day we die, it should not be fun anymore. And we're somehow forbidden to enjoy things, including learning. And that is really something that's engraved in almost every person's mindset across cultures. It's one of the only things all cultures seem to agree on, that yeah, learning cannot be fun, because then it won't work. It's not serious. And yes, it's an interesting preconception that trying to fight on a daily basis.
It's funny. That reminds me of something my dad told me once, long time ago, because he used to be an actor, and he was saying that, and I was a very serious kid. I don't know why. I was super serious. Like, I was not the one who was like laughing around and playing with many kids. I used to be, sort of an adult kid. I hung out with adults and had conversations and all this. So people saw me as a serious person since I was a kid, right? Um, but then when I did a little bit of theater in my high school years, and I did all sorts of wacky things and so on. And he said some people were like surprised seeing me there, and he reminded me that being serious and taking things seriously does not mean doing it with a serious face, right? You don't have to have a wrinkled face to be a serious person. And when serious means a good thing, right? When serious is you're taking things seriously and you're really doing things honestly, it can still be fun. You can still laugh, and
Yes.
that's fine, right?
Yeah, isn't that interesting how we correlate the two, right? You can take things seriously but still enjoy doing them. So one and the other are not mutually exclusive. So it's interesting how these things go, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Angela, let's dive right in. And this is a question we love making to our guests because our audience learns a lot and also humanizes our amazing guests like you who have done incredible things. And it's all about one of those times where, which, hopefully it's not been too many, but hopefully there's been enough so that we learn of these. And you have learned plenty from those, I'm sure. One of those fails or first attempts in learning that you had when, using simulations or using fun for learning, we want to sort of be in the ground level with you, be with that story, take out some lessons and sort of be there with you and how you got out of it or what you got out of it.
um the first thing that comes to mind when I think about, I mean, if you want to call it a failure, if you mean with failure, I was frozen there for a second and thinking of all the swear words I have in my head, like how I'm going to get out of this one. Then there was this one session I did in Amsterdam for some universities to introduce a new business game that we really wanted all these university people to use. So we got all these professors, senior people, and I'm a woman on top of things. I was pregnant at the time, so like 30 something woman pregnant, and trying to explain to these university professors that know everything better that they have to use a digital online simulation, because so far they were always using the paper version, right, the offline version. And so I was telling them how cool the cloud is, and it's so much better it is to use the online digital version. And that was a give or take 7-8 years ago. And nobody was ready for digital at that point, and the freaking internet connection in the freaking hotel completely failed. So the cloud was not loading, they could not enter the decisions, we couldn't do anything, and it didn't get better, because you can have little failures here and there, but there the whole session had to switch back to offline. So yeah, my point about how cool digital was obviously didn't work out so well. What I definitely got out of it was that you should not focus so much on the digital tool itself, in a sense of the whole simulations on the cloud and how cool is that, because the more digital is involved, the more actually can go wrong, and that's really not something you want your audience to know, and really not something you want to have to worry about. And the best way, or the only way to do that, is to make sure you have a backup plan. Every engine, even, and every platform is somewhere, has a system that is not necessarily digital. So make sure you have that ready and up and going, so your algorithm still
Mm.
functions. And that's what I learned out of that. From that moment, I always had a backup plan for the system not loading, a backup plan for the connection of the participants suddenly disappearing. That happened to me too. Half of the participants were suddenly gone because they couldn't connect, and we didn't give them a phone number to call. So these poor fellows that only had the Zoom link and couldn't get back on Zoom and tried to reach out through to us couldn't. So it's more or less, if you have to deliver in a fully virtual environment, like we've almost all of us have to do to a certain extent now, have a very, very good non-digital backup plan, and make sure
Mm.
the participants are aware of it. And maybe the other thing is, don't sweat it, because the more the more they think you're unfailable and standing there, the less they will forgive you. If you stand there and you say, listen, this is going to be cool, this is going to be work, bear with me, because here and there, well, shit happens, and we go through it, and it's still fun. Then they show them that you're human, and they will be more human, or uh, you know kinder also towards you. So these are the kind of things I learned from that.
Very, very important lesson on, how digital can fail and might fail every now and then as well. And that happens. That's okay. I think I've told this story, so I'll be very brief on this on the podcast before. Uh, there's this amazing professor whose name I'm not going to name, who did a lot of things with us when I was working at IE Business School. And she did a lot of work. She did a lot of digital, but she was really afraid of, technology failing on her. And of course, she was one of the biggest users that the school had. So of course, if you use it many times, if it's going to fail, the chances are that there's bigger chances of it falling on you, right? It happened a couple of times. She was always nervous. She wanted to have somebody physically supporting there. But one of those times when once every X amount of years the lights went out in a whole block
Oh
of
my.
Madrid. Of course it happened to her, right?
Yeah.
And she was like, well, what do I do now? And it's like, well, the exact same thing you would do if you were teaching a normal class, right? And the lights go out. You either keep on with the class, suspend the class, up to you, right? But she was so nervous about this, and she was so, I don't want to say angry, but she was so frustrated that it happened in a class where she was so dependent on the technology that was being used. So yeah,
Yeah.
backup plan.
Yeah, I think what really helped me is I'm a very nervous flyer. And back in the days, I had to fly a lot. In the good old days, we were flying from seminar to seminar. I mean, I don't know if the days were that good because I was flying a lot, but still, and especially if you hate flying, that's not a very fun thing to do. And I was always, afraid and wondering what happens if the plane crashes. And so when you do these very long flights, and I'm sure you have done that in the past too, you kind of start walking around because there's only so many movies you can watch without before going crazy. So at some point, while everybody sleeps and you just walk around, if you go all the way to the back, that's where the air hostess and the people are, they kind of hiding back there, and you can have great conversations. And by the way, you always get free wine back there. And and out of curiosity, I asked them, I was like, listen, I mean, folks, how do they train you? What do they do? I know, I'm sure you have a code when really something fails with the airplane and you're going to crash and die. And, what do you do? And this air hostess looked at me. She said, like, you keep calm and you keep serving peanuts because there's nothing you can do. And that stuck with me whenever I have a moment when I'm in panic. I think, like, keep calm, keep serving peanuts. There's nothing you can do about that technical failure. But if you transmit your panic and your emotion to the people that you're supposed, there to entertain, then the whole thing fails. So you have
Yeah.
to have your emotional reaction not under control, but you cannot show it. You just have to keep calm and keep serving peanuts.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned that of the long flights I did. I think the number was 16-hour flight from
Mm,
straight from Madrid to Chile, to
ouch.
Santiago de Chile. It was amazing. 16 hours. And the worst part is when I was a kid, I used to sleep on airplanes, cars, trains, you name it. Now I can't sleep for the life of me in a plane. Like I sleep an hour maybe if I'm
Yeah.
very lucky, and that's it. 16-hour flight. Saw like
God.
5 movies, still 6 hours to spare. Sleep an
Yeah.
hour, 5 hours to spare. As you stretch, you do exercise, still another 4 hours to spare. It's just amazing.
Yeah, and if you fly a lot and you tend to fly with the same airlines, they only have a certain amount of movies you can freaking watch. And believe me, there is a point where Lufthansa or all these airlines, they run out of movies you can watch. And like, I've seen all of those. And
Yeah.
there's like 20 others I would never see for the life of me. So then you start, finding other occupational things to do, and huddling in the back of the airplane with the stewardesses is usually a very,
It's a
good
good one
plan.
for sure.
Yeah.
So Angela, let's flip the switch and go the other way. Can you tell us a story of a time when things actually did go well? Again, the first try or the nth try, doesn't matter, because you want to be there and perhaps see some of the success factors that you had in that experience.
It's an interesting question because in hindsight, things went well 9 times out of 10, or probably 99 times out of 100. Yes, of course, the one or
Mm.
two ones that where you had a whoopsie, somehow they stick to you a little bit stronger. Probably also because you learn, and that's what makes Sims so powerful too. Because you actually learn more when you fail in the sim as a participant than when you win. So but at the end of the day, that's kind of the same thing for you as a trainer. But I would say the real wow and super moments are when you have this complete and utter connection with the audience. They get it, and they are they are eager, and you see it in their eyes how much fun this was. So I'm thinking about this particularly leadership training, because Sims, to a certain extent, using them for leadership trainings is not something that is mainstream just yet.
Yeah.
They used a lot for technical skills, maybe here and there for some, operational ones. But to practice leadership skills, you really have an organization that says, I trust this, I really want to do this. And we had this over 300 audience, and we were doing them in iterations of 30 people, and fantastic 3 full days, fully virtual, teams of 6, so the full game, and everything there. And they were doing first the 6 weeks intense leadership training, but the more classical stuff, how do you give feedback, how do you have meaningful conversations, all these theoretical things. And then we were sending them through this 3 days grinder that we created in an ecosystem that they had to apply these skills, but they didn't know what was
Mm.
coming for them. They only knew there was a sim, and they suddenly had to do things they never did before, and they were like completely thrown out of their comfort zone. And that's obviously when you fall back into old behavior, and all the great ideas about let's stay calm and have a meaningful conversation with my peers goes right off the window. And we had these 2 other leadership trainers with us. So we had to create as 4 facilitators, this ecosystem where everything felt smooth. And we did that in 11 times over a period of a year. And by the 6th or 7th times, this groove between these other 2 facilitators and us and the audience was so good that this literally felt like a dance. It was so incredibly beautiful and amazing every single time. We all were looking forward to doing this. Then we had more fun. Then the new audience had even more fun because they saw us coming in and be like, this is going to be awesome. And having a 3 day training where people are challenged, where people are thrown out of their comfort zone, where people, literally they have to work really hard 3 times 8 hours in a row, and they enjoy it. And they tell you at the end of the day, I want more of this. This is so cool. This is like a drug. I want more. So yeah, this is really really the best part, and this is the best part over and over and over again when you see that these folks actually totally and utterly enjoy, and they say, I dragged my feet coming here, and now I don't want to leave.
Sounds absolutely amazing. Is there anything that you would say like, oh, I'd like to point out this or that thing that probably helped me a lot, or I did this different? I don't know. Like, what was maybe a factor that you saw helped you get there?
It's a very super super insightful question. You know what really helped me? Get off script. The first few sessions,
Hmm.
I was so thinking about, oh, this concept I want to introduce, this thing I want to do. So I had a lot scripted. And I was not, relaxed because there was so much stuff I wanted to get in there. And that didn't help. The second I threw the freaking script away, and I was like, I know the sim inside out. I know leadership skills. Whatever you're going to throw at me, I know what to do with that. I know how to read and entertain and entertain my audience. I forget about the script. The moment I trusted my instinct, my guts, and my emotional intelligence, that was really when it started to click and got better from that moment. So I know it sounds a little bit bold, but if I have one recommendation, throw the freaking script out. People can sense a script. They can sense a script when you're not, they will call you out on it. They will ask you challenging questions. They will fight you because they feel you want to convey something that you don't believe in. Authenticity is what you sense in people, passion and authenticity. And in a script, you can never convey that. So forget about the
Hmm.
script. If you need it up front to make sure that you have your ideas in order, use it as a preparation, but then throw it in the garbage and go with your guts because they are the ones carrying you through this.
Absolutely. That makes sense, especially. And I think there's different sort of profiles of people using simulations and whatnot. There's the people who would never be up to creating a script, right? Like they would never do a script. And sometimes those are the people that most need to have a script. I'm not saying follow it, but to have a script, right? And then there's the people who, feel that they really need the script, and they prepare it and over prepare it and over obsess around it. And those are the people that maybe even if you need to prepare it, then as you were so suggesting, that you need to throw it out the window and actually go with what they already have, right? I don't know if you
Yeah.
agree with me on that one.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think there's few people out there that don't need a script. To a certain extent, everybody that trains or does stands in front of the audience and talks. There's few superstars out there that can do this entirely unprepared. You just throw them out there
Yeah.
and they know what they talk about. And usually it's about their pet topic, so it wouldn't work with everything. It would probably work with the one thing they've been talking about for the last 20 years, but nothing else. So but if you do a sim and if you have a certain learning things that you want to convey, learning messages, learning outcomes, to a certain extent, you will be prepared. Call it a script or call it what's not. You have slides, you have a timing, you have whatever. And
Hmm.
yeah, I just felt that, if you need it as like a parachute when everything else fails, you're like, okay, what did I wanted to say? But it if you I just, trust yourself, your right. So just make sure that folks connect with you as a professional that wants to give them an experience that broadens their mindset. And if you reduce all your the learning experience, the sim experience, to that, you're already doing a lot. If you compare that with all the other learning that is out there, there's maybe 10% of it that actually broadens people's minds. And if you just stick to that, then you're like, whatever we're going to be doing here, it's like the matrix moment. You're already here. Take the red pill or take the blue pill, but if you engage in this, it's going to broaden your scope, it's going to broaden your mind. And that's kind
Hmm.
of the minimum denominator. And once you realize that, you can relax a lot, and then just, whatever script there is, throw it out.
Amazing. So, Angela, having all this experience that you have, if you're facing a situation where you want to train somebody on something, how do you go about it? Like they tell you client comes in tomorrow, maybe you don't have a sim ready and you have to either research it or create it. How do you go about it? Do you have some sort of process?
Sometimes I compare this interesting question. I compare this sometimes to, a doctor's visit. You have a lot of clients that come to you, like they would go to a doctor and say, oh, it hurts here, help me. And you're like, okay, no, this is this is cool. I can either give you now an aspirin and then it's going to stop hurting, and we'll check again. But and sometimes I actually do that. I have sometimes clients that come with something that I know I could somehow help them fix, but they're neither ready nor do they want to spend the time. They just want they just want a band-aid. And so in that case, you kind of propose something that is low maintenance, easy to do, will be have a high entertainment factor, and you go about it. When you sense that a client is serious about, really, okay, I want to create a learning experience that is a little bit more than what we usually do, then you dig a little bit deeper. You're like, okay, what is it that you really are trying to achieve? What is the experience? What are the insights? What are the eye openers, the aha moments, that you want that audience to have, and why? Because you can create the most amazing, and that is maybe another thing, you can create the most amazing, wonderful, fantastic 6 course menu simulation based training. If the audience comes in there and is already dragging their feet, not prepared, don't want to do this and don't want to be there, they're gonna fight you, you're gonna be frustrated, and the whole thing is, you have to leave it at be. So you
Hmm.
have to be really sure. I think the main thing I'm always checking is, like, who are these folks that are supposed to do this, and can I talk to them? So I try to see, can I connect with the folks that will actually be in the program? Can I see what is it that they actually need? And here and there, if I cannot talk to them, I just create something that sounds great for the ever people that sign up on my program, and then I do, but don't reveal that. Okay, I'm on a podcast now, but I do something completely different in the session, where I ask the audience, what is it that you actually need? Because you can do whatever. A sim is, you can do absolutely anything with a simulation. It's literally like a magic wonderland, where you can, any learning experience that you need, you can put it in there. What is important is that the folks that are doing this are like, okay, this is currently what I need, and how can I, what can help me, or what experience that I make them go through will help them be better professionals in what they have to do, because their life is probably not
Hmm.
easy, and my job is to make it easier by giving them the tools to make it. So But if there's a process, it's forensics. It's literally forensics. You ask, "Oh, does it hurt here? Does it hurt when you move? Okay. When did it start hurting? Does it hurt at night?" The same way a doctor would go. You just poke and and probe and ask questions, and you have these questions that after a while you very quickly, one answer of the client leads to another one. So you have this maybe forensic 30. Usually, I don't need more than 20-30 minutes in an interview, and I know very much what they need, but then whether they're ready for that and they're really gonna get that is a complete different story, because that depends if I feel
Mm-hmm.
that this is something that they will actually get any benefit from, that they can leverage. Because it's no point, if somebody needs to drive up a mountain and then you say, "Oh, you would get a wonderful experience driving a Ferrari, but I think what you really need is a donkey so you can walk up the mountain." And then you have to be realistic there too, as much as you want them to enjoy the ride, right?
Of course, that's super, super important. So thanks for that, Angela.
Just a quick break before we continue with this episode. If you've been enjoying this podcast, I would really appreciate if you share it with your friends and family and on social media. On Twitter and Instagram, it's at RobAlvarezB and the hashtag ProfessorGame, all one word. And in Facebook, you can find the Professor Game page. Thanks in advance for your engagement.
Sort of spinning it around, and you already have given us some recommendations. Is there somebody that you would think of and say, well, after hearing these questions and all, the vibe of the podcast, is there like, oh, I'd really like to listen to the insights of this other person, sort of a featured guest for Professor Game?
Haha. um This is a tricky one, because there's so many people that are like-minded, that really get the same gist. But I think, is there one person that I now kind of that comes to the top of my head? His name is Stefan. He's gonna hate me forever for mispronouncing his last name, but it's Van Hooy Donk. I think this is how you pronounce it. He's been in learning, give or take, as much as I have been. So that means we're old. So here's it revealed. But he worked, for all the big ones, from Nokia over several other companies, Cognizant amongst others, and always in a learning development role. And he created the Global Curiosity Institute. I don't know if you heard of those folks. And he wrote the Curiosity Manifesto, which is kind of something for companies to see and look how you can foster more curiosity in the workplace. And when he
Hmm.
first mentioned that, it really triggered me, because I was like, this is it. This is it. Because with gamification, I mean, I know you're Professor Game, but with gamification, there's always this, side image of, oh, a game, or the game is for kids and it's not serious, and all these kind of things. You sometimes have a hard time trying to convince people on how powerful games and sims are. he's
Yeah.
he's going the way through the curiosity. It does not necessarily mean sims. It just means anything that triggers curiosity, and curiosity is in us. We're humans, we're all curious. It might have been beaten out of us through cultural rigidity, but it's still in us. And fostering curiosity means people want to try things, people want to explore, people want to take new paths and see where it takes them. And that's our natural instinct. So if you find ways in the workforce, in the learning, to foster this curiosity, you will get way further than anybody else. Because right now,
Hmm.
with an ecosystem that's shifting around us, everything that is unpredictable more and more, and accelerated, so you need this resilience, adaptability, and all these things. But what does it come down to? How do you know? How do you train adaptability? Well, by people, exposing them to all different kinds of things, and making them be more aware of what they can do and how they can do it. And the more you look at it, the more you see that curiosity is an incredible, not only trigger, but important skill to foster. So if you had anybody that I would recommend, it would be Stefan, because I think, yeah, that is a very important and interesting angle. And at the end of the day, there's no game or no sim that will not completely and utterly put and tag into the curiosity trigger with all the participants.
Amazing. Sounds like a very interesting person. And talking about those recommendations, is there a book that you recommend the engagers?
Well, now the curiosity manifesto is definitely something from Stefan, but if I had to, because I want to recommend two different people, I guess not the same one for two things. There's an interesting book from a coach I've worked with for a long, long time, also almost 25 years, gosh, and his book is called "What Color Is Your Sky?" He used to ask that question in the trainings, right? And then it was really something that makes you think, whatever color the sky is right now, it's actually always the same color. It's just how we see it is different. So it always went back to the how can you put what is how important the mindset is. And the same with Stefan would foster curiosity mindset. That other author, he's French American, his name is Hervé da Costa. So the book is What Color Is Your Sky? It is a really, really wonderful way of trying to find what is it that is your purpose, and how can you connect what you're doing on a day-to-day life with your purpose, and takes you through that in a very easy and wonderful way. So a book recommendation would be that one.
Amazing. Sounds like a very interesting one as well. We'll definitely have that on the show notes. So engagers, if you want to catch the names, the books, you can always go to the show notes. You go to professorgame.com, type Angela. You'll definitely find this episode with Angela Feigl, right?
Yes.
So keeping up with those recommendations, let's talk about you, Angela. What would you say is your superpower in this world of fun and learning?
um I love that you use superpower, because I always say the same thing. I never use skills or be or capabilities. I use superpower. Um, I have an ability to convey my enthusiasm and my passion, and I connect through my enthusiasm and
Mm.
my passion in anything that I do. And that was always the case. I could never turn it off. I mean, that's probably the negative side. I can absolutely never turn it off. And this is, I would say, if there's one superpower, it's that. I absolutely, totally, truly, deeply love everything that I do every single moment of the day, and it makes me completely and utterly empathetic to and connecting with people. So that is my superpower.
Big superpower, big time. So, Angela, we've gotten to that pivotal question in the podcast. What is
Ooh.
your favorite game?
Ooh. um can I is it reduced to a certain, no, um my absolute favorite game always was, this is gonna be um I don't even know how that's called in English. um this I think it's called Risk. It's the one where you have this map of the Earth, and then you have a certain territory, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
go conquer the world,
With
and you
dice.
have to, yeah, with dices, and you have to beat other people up with the dices, and then you have to first strategically move where you think is gonna be the best, and then make it work, and you have to make allies, and then betray your allies, and all these things. So
And break
uh,
up families and
yes, yes, there was a lot of fighting over the playing board, but I would say that was always my favorite game when I was still playing those games. In the digital world, I moved towards Game of Thrones Conquest, because it has dragons, and I absolutely love dragons. It's really the only reason I'm playing that game, because it's actually really expensive, and it's full of douchebags, like people that throw a lot of money at the game, and they don't really care about anybody. But I have a dragon, and I absolutely love the fact that I have a dragon, and I got very attached to my dragon. But no, in terms
Game
of
of Thrones. Game of Thrones. Which one is it?
Game of Thrones Conquest, that's the game you can play on your, iPhone. It's stupid. It's literally based on the Game of Thrones thing, and you have your little castle, and then you have to. I never fight other people. I don't like to fight other people. I just playing because I have a dragon. If I could do one thing in my life, I want to ride a dragon. Bad things, there is no dragons, but that's my dream. I keep the dream up. I mean, they're cloning all kinds of things. Maybe at some point they're gonna figure out how to create a dragon.
We'll see. We'll see what the future has for us, definitely, Angela, because with the heat waves that we've having, I think the dragons are kind of, sort of breathing on our necks at
They
this
would love
point.
it here. They would love it right now. The climate on Earth, this is the new
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
But
it's a time for
yeah,
dragons now.
it is.
So, Angela, thank you so much for all the insights that you shared, all your experience that you shared with the engagers. But before we move on, before we do all the next things that everybody has to do in their lives, do you have any final words, any final piece of advice, anything you want to say before we take off? And of course, let us know where we can find out more about you.
Um, yeah, I would really, really like to say, guys, if you're listening to this, you're into games, you're into Professor Games, you're into all these things. Keep doing it, keep spreading the word. Try to make learning less of a tedious task or something that has to be done, and a little more something that people actually enjoy. And maybe in a general way, just let's give cut us all some slack, right? I mean, seriously, we've all been through a lot, not only in the last 2 years, but probably way longer than that. And I sometimes feel a little bit of kindness and trying to say, hey, listen, it's okay. Just cut yourself some slack first, and then start cutting other people some slack. So, and about me, I'm all over social media, but no, most importantly, I'm all over LinkedIn. So if you type my name, but you have to invert it, that's the trick. You have to find me under Feigl Angela, and not Angela Feigl, because that's how I identify if somebody's a bot or not. If they say hello Feigl, I know this is a robo message. So if you type Feigl Angela, you find me there, and I'd be super happy. And I can talk about all these things all day. So connect with me.
Amazing. We'll also share the web of digital, your blog, and all those things on the show notes, as I mentioned before. So,
Oh, I didn't know I can make a little, advertisement for my blog. So yeah, I have a little blog. It's called "The Cream in My Coffee," and it's some, daily thoughts that I have about the world of human relations in the wider sense in organizations, and maybe some of the things that could and should be changed. So if you want to read that, I'm very happy if you see me there too.
amazing. So you can find definitely there. You'll find all of these on the show notes, all these links. There's even a link to chat with Angela, as she very gracefully shared with us, in case you're interested in one of the services that they are offering, definitely at Digital. However,
And even if you
engagers.
just want to chat with me, I am
Oh, yeah.
perfectly happy with that.
There you go. There you go, engagers. An offer you can't refuse, for sure. So, once again, thank you very much. Thank you for investing this time in the engagers. However, at least for now and for today, it is time to say that it's game over. Hey, engagers, thank you for listening to the Professor Game podcast, and I hope you enjoyed this interview with Angela. And if you have any questions that you would like to ask other guests in the future, please go to professorgame.com/question and ask your question. If you are selected, it will come up in a future episode, and you will get your answer by that guest live in an episode. And remember, before you go on to your next mission, remember to subscribe or follow for free in whatever is your favorite podcast app, and listen to the next episode of Professor Game. See you there.